Hi, my name is James Sherer. I'm a partner with the law firm Baker and Hostetler in New York City, and I co-chair our emerging tech team, which leads the client-facing practices of information governance, Web3, and digital currency, as well as artificial intelligence. And I'm going to speak today for the AI for IA conference, the fifth Artificial Intelligence for Information Accessibility conference here in 2024. And I'm going to speak at length about AI program development and different elements of programs. I'm going to speak from actual experience that I've had with clients and how we've seen a lot of areas come into alignment through the work that we've done for our clients. So let me start with the different component or elements of AI programs and how those speak to presenting what's happening within AI in a way that is accessible to people, explainable, interpretable, that comes with, if not a layer of transparency to all of this, at least of interpretability and a further ability to understand what's happening within organizations and their uses of AI. And I'll outline the component parts of these programs and then dig in a little bit deeper on some of those areas to explain what clients have been concerned about and how they may have addressed some of the challenges that are presented. We start with an area that we've dealt with. I think it's north of 30 clients now. So more than 30 clients have had AI use policies put into place, and we're seeing additional policies come into play each and every day. So AI use policy, a core component of a lot of the program development. We also see focus on AI training, and that's for both personnel and partners with organizations who are using AI. We see a focus on an AI governance committee charter, and that's something that's provided for both under the NIST AI risk management framework here in the United States and also a new Colorado law that we have that is due to go into effect in January of 2026. We see executive leadership responsibilities, and this is something that's similar to European ideals as well, where you've got responsibilities at a higher level within an organization that should filter down due to appropriate delegation, but also support from the executive and leaderships as far as both responsibilities and financial support. We've got a focus on third-party contracting. This is an area that's gotten a lot more focus within our client work, where organizations that are purchasing AI technologies or maybe deploying them in their environments look to see exactly how much support they're going to get from their contracting partners, especially if there are instances where the deployers of the technology are being asked by, say, regulators or in the course of litigation or some kind of investigation about what's going on. And we'll speak to notice at the back end too, where this may be required. We see the requirement to compile and update legal and regulatory requirements associated with AI. This one makes sense. In order to do the things that are required under law, you have to keep up to date with what's happening in the law. Likewise, many of those laws have some sort of specific requirements for disclosure to regulators. And this may be upon request, and we're not speaking about notice out to data subjects, come back to, but this is to regulators. It may be the requirements for the developers or the deployers to register the uses of these technologies or to put them in databases. All right, then we also see some more components about internal operations. We see a requirement for integration of trustworthy AI into the design. And that design can be both the technologies itself, but also the way in which they're deployed. So thinking about trustworthy AI design throughout both the development of a program, but also how it's being utilized. So AI program as the AI technology, but also program for its implementation and utilization within an environment. But putting it into practice is not the only thing you're required to do. We also may have a requirement to monitor it and review it on a periodic basis. So looking at the AI program, looking at how it's operating, making sure we can accommodate those opportunities for the AI technology to drift or to change and how we might mitigate some of those issues or determine whether or not we have to deprecate a program and start to wind it down. Within that, Therefore, we have to provide for feedback integration for the AI program. So how are we going to re-inform the program about what's happening? How are we going to keep track of all of that and have a mechanism by which we can change the status quo and we can make sure that the program's still working as intended? How do we apply back the feedback from that monitoring or periodic review? Important to all of this, how do we document it? How do we document the AI program? How do we document its development? One of the roles I've had over the course of the past year has been a training partner with the IIPP's AIGP certification exam, and we speak at length about the requirements to prospectively document an AI program. You may have these conformity assessments under laws like the European AI Act. The United States also speaks to these requirements to contemporaneously document an AI program before it starts. It's difficult to ask the computer program what has happened after it's already been going. We've seen these issues with hallucinations within generative AI platforms. You can ask the program, it may give you an answer. It may give you a very confident answer. It may give you a very confident and very incorrect answer. Documenting it at the first side, dealing with that on that level so that you've got confidence that not only is your program operating correctly, but you'll be able to answer perhaps some of those regulatory questions later on, and the initial documentation is going to help support the assertion that those documents are business records and are accurate for what the program is doing and what it was designed to do. We've then got requirements for security that also orients toward both NIST and the EU AI Act, as well as some guidance we've seen in the United States for the National Insurance Association and their commissioners, the NAIC, where they said this is the way in which you need to protect the use of AI. Not only do you have to protect the AI itself, but also prevent it from doing things that are untoward, that are going to cause problems. And then in line with the documentation of the AI program itself is a data mapping exercise around it. How does AI intersect with the broader operation of a company, how they're working, what they're doing? I want to think very carefully about that. One of the guidance and rules we've seen in a lot of AI training has been you don't come into an environment and assume AI is the only thing that matters and that you need a completely new compliance regime to properly deal with it. Instead, you want to look at the environment into which you're coming, look at existing compliance regimes. You want to avoid what's called the Cobra effect, the law of unintended consequences. Look to see what the lay of the land is, see what firm foundations you have, and then integrate in the AI program on top of that. And that starts also with data mapping, which speaks to the areas and resources within the organization. And then the next part of this assessment process is, in fact, an audit and assessment similar to what we might see in the privacy regime, looking at the assets and the processing activities, how we're using personal data, where the AI is functioning if it's in multiple environments, and then what it's trying to do. What other types of data is it using? Finally, one of the biggest component parts that's going to build off of everything else I've outlined here has been this transparency / notice / responses to data subject requests. Given this build out within an environment, then how can organizations responsibly respond to inquiries made about its AI program operation? We've already seen part of this within the EU AI Act, where it's looking to say, well, what degree of transparency or translucency or explainability are we going to provide given certain use cases for the technology's use? We also want to think about transparency down the pipeline, that is, through the supply chain for the uses of these technologies. If you are a deployer, you may not have perfect access to all of the information associated with the tool that you've deployed that's interacting with your customers or your potential customers. You as a deployer may be entirely dependent upon the developer for some of that information. This goes all the way back to that prior use of third-party contracting. The importance of negotiating within that contracting process access to information related to the AI product that you are purchasing to deploy. And if there are going to be requirements for certain third-party audits, we've seen this more, and that idea of audit as a part of the audit and assessment criteria within a program Well, who's going to pay for that audit? Who may have access to information for an audit? We've seen pressures both in Europe and the United States for not only audits, but then this dates back to guidance from the FTC dating back to 2013. Perhaps the best audits are independent third-party audits. You've got auditors who are required under their specific professional strictures to abide by certain codes of conduct. So they're going to go ahead and audit AI programs in a way that works with their licensure requirements. But in order to do a true independent third party audit, you have to have access to the information. You have to access, in this case, to the core components of AI programs. Those may be in the possession of the developer. There may not be a lot of opportunity to get those, but for integrating that into the contracting process. And I think I'll end this presentation as I'm at time with the combination there for an AI policy and program that accommodates for all of these different steps. And it's forewarned is forearmed. Thinking about all these issues even before you step up and start to purchase a technology, because that procurement step may be critical, especially if you're a deployer rather than a developer. You get the most attention toward your questions and best answers when someone is trying to sell you a technology rather than when you're already working with that technology, you've paid for it, and they're not further incentivized. So thank you so much for this opportunity to present on this topic.